Welcome to Let's Talk Horses. I'm your host, Jason Vance. Joining me is Karen Waite, a horse specialist from Michigan State University. Today we're visiting about the impact of competition on horse behavior. Now, Karen, you're a doctor of sports psychology with an emphasis in equestrian activity. I'm sure you work with riders, but horse behavior is also something you deal with, right?
Yes, absolutely, and that was a big part of my research interest with my PhD. I'm very, very interested in competition. I love competition, and the sports psychology end of it, when I originally started studying it, was more to address performance issues and optimize performance in humans. But as I continued to study that, I started to realize that there were also ways that we could address the needs of horses in that dynamic and make it a great experience for both horse and human.
Now, how do different types of competition impact a horse's behavior differently?
Honestly, it really depends on the horse. Horses don't respond, just like people don't respond to everything the same way. Horses don't either. We have certain breeds of horses and certain lines within breeds that were bred to do particular things. We may have very relaxed and tractable Western pleasure horses that really shouldn't be asked to do things like run speed events. At the same time, we have horses who are bred to race that probably shouldn't be asked to do things like Western pleasure, because it's just not what they were genetically designed to do necessarily. But even from a genetic perspective, they may not have the temperament or the attitude that really makes them comfortable or successful in that discipline. So I think it's important to consider all facets of it, not just what a human hopes to get out of competition.
Which, as far as some of the negative behaviors that you may see with different types of competition, what are some of the possible behaviors that can be a problem?
One very evident example was something that we found in one of the first studies of my PhD research, where we looked at rider behavior and horse behavior in speed horses. And evaluated the way in which they were ridden. That is, were they ridden aggressively with lots of kicking and spurring and that sort of thing, or excessive whipping, or were they ridden quietly and softly? And was there a relationship between, just as one example of a behavior, the way those horses entered the arena? If you've watched, especially lower end speed events, or introductory end, we'll say, we won't say lower end, but introductory level speed events, sometimes those horses are very reluctant to enter the arena, and the thought was that it may be because of the way they've been ridden. And we were able to show statistically that there was a relationship between the way they were subsequently ridden and how calmly and quietly they entered the arena. So that's an example of the way a horse has been ridden influencing its behavior in a competitive situation.
So what can be done to lessen the negative impacts of competition on horse behavior?
I think the most important thing people can do is take an honest look at what it is they want to do competitively and make sure that they select the right horse for the job. And if they get partway into their competitive career with that horse and they realize that the horse is not suited for the job, that they make the right decision for their horse and either take up a different discipline that's more suited for that horse, or change horses to a horse that's more suited for what they want to do. Trying to fit a square peg into a round hole never works, and I think sometimes when we get into treatment and humane treatment issues, it's because that's what people are trying to do. So I think the most important thing that people can do is just be honest about what they want to do competitively, be honest about what their horse is capable of, and make decisions that will ultimately make the experience better for everyone.
So do you have any advice to horse owners so that they can optimize both their and their horse's competitive experience?
The big one would be selection and being honest about what it is you want to do. I think the second thing I would suggest people do is get professional help where they can, or get the help of a volunteer, whether it be a 4-H leader or a pony club advisor or a trusted horse person that maybe knows more about the discipline than they do, and get some help from that person in making the decisions and evaluating whether your horse is appropriate or not. And then I think also paying close attention to your horse's attitude, to their general health, just like with humans. They'll show you a lot about how they're feeling about life and their job just in the way that they behave. So becoming a student of horse behavior and knowing when your horse perhaps isn't quite right or quite up to the task can also be very helpful.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Karen.
Thank you. It's been great. I appreciate it.
That's Karen Waite from Michigan State University. She's been our guest on Let's Talk Horses. Thanks for listening, and tune in next time for another edition of Let's Talk Horses.